Hello and welcome back to Those Two Geeks. My name's Alex. It is just me alone. You are stuck with me alone today. Joe is away. Now, a week ago, AEW hosted their Revolution pay-per-view event. I almost said podcast for some reason. Hosted their Revolution pay-per-view event, and I have been looking forward to this one for a little while. And I'm sure at this point you've either seen it, read about it, or even rewatched it, whatever. So if you haven't, now would be a good time to not listen to this because that's what I'm going to talk about to start with. I had some thoughts on some of the matches. Now, I make no secret of the fact that I enjoy AEW and the amount of matches that they have on the show. I'm pretty sure they had almost 9 matches, 8 or 9 matches on the main pay-per-view event, plus 3 on the pre-show. Yeah, 9. Man, you'd think I'd have counted that before we started, right? So it started out with Hangman Adam Page against MJF, which was absolutely fantastic. Ironically enough, there are so many matches in this pay-per-view that could easily have main evented something, and we'll get to that down the road. Hangman Page versus MJF was one of them. There was some excellent character work within the match by MJF as he tries to understand why the crowd still loves Hangman Page after everything he's done, whereas they don't love MJF. It was far from subtly done, but it's nicely a nice build on the story as we've been getting for the last few months now. I thought the right outcome happened here. I think it made sense for Hangman Page to defeat MJF. It sends both of them in the right trajectory, and honestly, either one of them could have eaten the pinfall for this. So I think that it's interesting that MJF lost clean in the ring. I can't wait to see where this goes. Now, I haven't seen all of Dynamite from this week because I'm chronically behind on things. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch that and then Collision tonight to see what the fallout from this pay-per-view is. And there's an excellent chance if you've watched that, you're probably already screaming at me thinking I'm an idiot. That said, Hangman Page, MJF by pinfall, fantastic match. Absolutely brilliant. I am far from the person you want to listen to when it gives star ratings out for a match, so I'm not going to. But this was, on any other pay-per-view, this would have been one of my top matches. The next one we had Mercedes Moné against Momo Watanabe for the TBS Championship. Not my favorite match of the night. It was, and again, I think it suffered from the card around it. It was a decent match, and I thoroughly enjoyed what each woman brought to the ring. It just wasn't as strong as some of the other matches. I thoroughly enjoyed, honestly, Mercedes Moné fighting from underneath at times. I think she gets a lot of hate, and I think a lot of it is justified for the character, not the person in the storyline. It makes a lot of sense for her to get a lot of hate. Yes, she hasn't lost a match in AEW yet, but I think that again, it's building to something. I don't think she's going to keep the TBS championship for much longer, but this was almost 20 minutes and it was a really good, really good match. I enjoyed it. Wasn't my favorite of the night. Definitely wasn't my favorite. Honestly, I think this may have been my one of the least favorites that I had. Maybe. Anyway, following that, and I think this is where the downside for the Mercedes Moné and Momo Watanabe, you had Swerve Strickland defeating Ricochet by pinfall. Anytime you see Swerve in a ring, it's going to be great. I think what this is set up for the future is fantastic. I think that Swerve Strickland is a absolutely fantastic professional wrestler. He is wonderful to watch in the ring, and I love the program that he's been doing with Ricochet. I enjoyed the faux breakup of Swerve and Prince Nana in the middle of the match as Nana just left and then eventually came back to grab the robe or try and grab the robe from Ricochet. I thought that was really cool. I also really enjoyed the the killer instinct that Swerve was showing against Ricochet as the match was going on. I think it showed that Swerve had reawakened the dangerous man, or most dangerous man in AEW again. Again, fantastic match. Thoroughly enjoyed that one. I also spoiler alert, I'm going to enjoy most of these. Kazuchika Okada versus Brody King. I am a huge fan of Brody King, and I think Kazuchika Okada is fantastic. I was on the edge of my seat for this because I genuinely thought that Brody King was going to pull it out, and I was really hoping he would. So when he didn't, I actually sat there and thought, man, that sucks. So I can't wait to see where Okada goes from here. I think that's going to be fantastic, but I don't think that Brody King lost anything in losing to Kazuchika Okada. I think that him taking a belt shot to the head and somehow kicking out establishes him as more of a monster than anything else. Same as Buddy Matthews at the last pay per view or Grand Slam Australia, sorry, where Okada, effect I think it was a low blow for that one. He's winning but barely, and I'm enjoying the desperation that he's showing. I also think his middle finger taunt is fantastic, and something I've noticed about Brody King, and this is an observation that I had after watching someone trying to understand why in certain promotion, I think it was WWE, why does a wrestler suddenly fall exhausted to the rope, the middle rope in a match against Rey Mysterio, but no one else? When it comes to Brody King, someone's in the corner and he charges and splashes him or shoulder blocks him or whatever, and it causes him to flop down. They usually end up sitting down where he barks around the ring and then charges in for a cannibal. I think it's a brilliant way to set it up, and it makes sense in the story of the match that he's putting him in the position dazed, and then he uses that to finish them up. So really enjoyed the way he does that. Again, would have loved to have seen Brody with the belt, but I think that gold for the Hounds of Hell is coming sooner or later. The next match was the Hurt Syndicate versus the Outrunners for the Tag Team Championships. To the surprise of no one, the Hurt Syndicate did retain. I was more surprised at the length of the match. It was almost 9 minutes long, and I thought it was fantastic that they were able to go for that long and put that much heart in against the Hurt Syndicate. The Outrunners go for that long and put that much of an effort in against the Hurt Syndicate. The Hurt Syndicate definitely put over how tough the Outrunners were, even if the result was in no doubt. It unsurprising match. I think it adds a lot to the Outrunners going forward, but I'm really interested to see where the Hurt Syndicate go from here, who their next opponents are going to be. I assume Lance Archer and Brian Cage, but more to come there, I suppose. It may even already be out with Dynamite and Collision this week by the time you're listening to this and you're wondering what the fuck I'm talking about. After that, we had what many are justifiably calling the match of the night. You had Timeless Tony Storm versus Mariah May in a Force Count Anywhere match for the Women's World Championship. Clocked in just under 13 minutes, and my god, was it fantastic. Ironically enough, I've seen people say that it wasn't long enough. I actually wonder if it was longer, would it still have been as much of a banger as it was? Would they have had to slow things down? Would they have had more time to let it breathe? Would it not have been as shocking and balls to the wall as it were? Um, it was just fantastic. Like if you can find one match from this pay per view, this is a great one to watch. It may not have been my favorite match of the night, but it came damn close. Um, Ironically enough, I think the only reason it wasn't my favorite match of the night is because after this you had Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, followed by Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Both phenomenal matches. Omega and Takeshita was a really good strong style match. I thought it was fantastic. There was a lot of, or rather, a complete lack of any significant blood or anything like that, which I thought was great. I enjoyed the fact you had this horrifically bloody match before with thumbtacks, broken glass and duct tape being used to attach the broken glass to a fist and then punches exchanged. and then there was an almost I don't want to say technical match, but it was very much a one man trying to overcome his own demons and also Konosuke Takeshita to defeat him for the international championship. Really good match, thoroughly enjoyed it, and that was followed up by honestly what was probably my match of the night, Osprey versus Fletcher. There's a lot of folks who will call me wrong and say that it should have been Tony Storm Mariah May for my match of the night. You could toss a coin, honestly. A coin toss between the two, absolutely could have gone either way. However, Osprey versus Fletcher was just phenomenal. It was a steel cage match. There were obviously shenanigans because it's a Don Callis family match, so you did have Mark Davis come out. I was honestly convinced that he was going to turn on Kyle Fletcher and help Osprey win, but that didn't happen. Again, maybe it's coming, maybe it's not, but as of right now, it wasn't something that was on the cards. I think some of the moves they did in that match was astounding. The Spanish fly off the top of the cage. I don't know how Osprey didn't break a hip with the way he landed, but he seemed to be hobbling around okay after, so I hope he's all right. There is also the Styles Clash onto thumbtacks that Kyle Fletcher took. Somebody told me that there were thumbtacks sticking out of his crotch afterwards. I kind of hope not, because that would just be horrifically painful. But it wouldn't surprise me given what they were doing to each other. The ending of the match harkened back to one of their I think it was their first match against each other in AEW, almost image for image. The difference was in the first one, Kyle was resignedly, accepting defeat by his friend. In this one, he's screaming at the top of his lungs that he fucking hates Osprey. He hates him. He hates him. He's nothing. And then Osprey does the hidden blade, and then picks him up for a Tiger Driver 99, 91. So I think that it was a fantastic end to a feud. If it carries on, fair enough. I think the feud should end at that point. I think Osprey should move to other title pictures and away from the Don Callis family. But again, we'll see what happens with that. Again, this is another one of those. If you can only watch one match, this is a great candidate for that. If if you have about an hour and a half, it's a great idea to watch the Tony Storm, Mariah May, Omega Takeshita, and then Osprey Fletcher, one after another, banger after banger after banger. The the main event was, I think, honestly, anything after those three matches would come out as being a bit lackluster. It was fine. It was a fine match, and I think that was the problem, is that it was fine. It wasn't wasn't bad by any means. It just didn't do a lot to excite me personally. There was a lot of brawling in the match. I was really excited to see Moxley versus Cope, and it was really good. Christian Cage did end up cashing in his chance at the contract, at which point eventually he he got choked out by Moxley. So it ended up as a triple threat. Moxley choked out Christian. Cope never got pinned or submitted. So what I think is a smart choice by AEW and Tony Khan, they had Moxley do a promo on the Dynamite following the pay per view that won this week, where he effectively says, "I know I hurt Cope. He's tougher than I thought." And he wanted or he was offering a rematch, calling it whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be a street fight. I think it's next week, so I'm looking forward to that. I think it gives them chance to run back the match a bit and show what could have happened if they'd have instead gone for a more of a hardcore style match. That said, I think they made the right choice in not doing that, especially after the the Osprey Fletcher before it, and then Tony and Mariah May earlier in the night. I think it's just one of those things where it makes sense that it was the main event. However, I think either one of those three matches before would have happily fit in that main event slot. Honestly, you could have had Hangman Page and MJF in the main event slot, but I think if anything, it should have been Tony and Mariah May. Again, even if the match had to be a little bit longer, I still think you could have done wonders with a 15-minute match. Just had them rest it a little bit more. Anyway, I'm not a booker. I can give my opinion, but I have no idea how that logistically would have worked with additional time in that match what they would have had to have changed. So honestly, this was a fantastic pay-per-view. I didn't sit down and watch it all in one. I find 2 hours is usually I usually end up taking a break after a couple of hours watching any kind of wrestling. Hell, even a movie. If I'm watching Lord of the Rings, the extended versions, I'm usually standing up midway through to get a drink, something like that. So that doesn't surprise me that I ended up having to move around a little bit. I think I even took a break for half an hour or so. Made some anyway. That's irrelevant, I suppose. Ultimately, at this point, I'm really happy with the pay per view. I thought it was really good. I think it's a great sign for AEW. I think it can continue this way. I think everyone delivered with their matches, and honestly, the only matches that I wasn't super fond of were still better than a lot of other things I've seen. So on a 4 hour pay per view, ish, 4-ish hour pay per view with 9 matches and almost every single one was a banger. With especially with some of the stories leading into it, it was absolutely fantastic. If you're an AEW fan, you haven't seen this, and I didn't spoil all of it for you, it's well worth a watch. It's absolutely brilliant. All right, I don't know if you can tell I'm fighting some kind of cold at this point, so I may have snuffled. I think I may have coughed, but I'll try and catch that out. So, with that being said, I am going to abruptly end it here. It's what I lied. I've been starting to play The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo Switch, uh, Nintendo 64 expansion pack. I had forgotten how much I enjoyed that game, and I'm sure I haven't gotten to some of the difficult puzzles yet. And either I remember a lot about the game from 20 odd years ago, or maybe games are just a bit harder now, and I'm used to thinking in a certain gamer logic. So we'll see as that carries on. I'm not looking forward to getting to the water temple, but I can happily keep you abreast of the comings and goings of Little Link. I think right now I've just made it to, or I'm about to leave Hyrule Castle to go to the Goron Mountain for whatever it is that you have to do in Goron Mountain. I'm again looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really interesting. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens. Uh, I'm curious to see if I'll end up playing Majora's Mask. That one I don't remember. I think I never actually played that through once, and ended up playing a bunch of the days again, but never actually played it the same way I did Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is definitely my favorite of the N64 Zelda games. It also reminded me I need to go back to Tears of the Kingdom. I know I haven't finished it. I don't know how far I am into it, and I've probably lost a lot of um, skill practice at playing it. So it'll be interesting to jump back in. I know Nintendo games aren't always super difficult, so it shouldn't be too hard to do that. And that really is the end of the show. My headset is starting to die, and I still needed to edit a few things on this, so I will bid you adieu.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.